Hey, I'm Veronica from UXPressia. Let me briefly introduce you to what we at UXPressia do. UXPressia is an online platform where you can build customer journey maps, impact maps, and personas for your organization. With more than 100 ready-to-use templates, you can speed up your persona creation and mapping processes. To help you build confidence on your journey and learn from other practitioners, we host community events on user, customer, employee experience, and all things journey mapping. Our speakers are industry experts that are willing to share their knowledge to help you design and build better products and services. We also speak at the events ourselves and share tips and tricks we learned through years of practice and numerous interviews with other mappers. On top of that, we have UXPressia Academy, where you can dive into learning how to build journey maps, personas, and conduct interviews. And do that all at your own pace. Don't forget to check it out and enjoy the event.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Yulia and Veronica. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about with regards to connecting the dots between how do we retain our customers and customer journey mapping. Often in the CX spaces, we talk a lot about customers and customers' feelings and so on, but we don't really connect with, at the end of the day, what has to happen in order for a customer to continue doing business with us. So I think customer journey mapping is central to that discussion, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So let me start sharing my slides, and I want to make this somewhat interactive. And so please don't hesitate when I'm prompting you. Please interact and give me your feedback. So we want to talk a little bit about how do we, as CX professionals or people who are interested in customer experience, customer success, how do we really master this topic around retaining customers? So I'll get into it. Basically, what I'll cover with you today is starting with the importance of customer retention. Seems very logical, but once again, in CX spaces, retention often goes off of the table. So we want to talk about the importance of retention and what are the challenges around, especially today. What are some of the challenges we have around retaining customers? We want to talk about how strategic customer journey mapping, and I emphasize strategic customer journey mapping because there are a lot of different types of journey maps. Many times, in my view, sometimes a journey map is more of a process map when it's very detailed. A strategic customer journey map, for me, is a vision, right? It's a high-level document looking at what are the factors contributing to a customer's ability to have a great experience with you, and also at the end of the day, decide to continue doing business with you. So we'll talk around how a strategic customer journey map can help. We'll also deep dive into how to go about creating that, right? I don't want to just kind of talk to you about philosophy, right? We want to dig down into, at least from my point of view, how I go about with my team on creating strategic journey maps. And then we're going to end it with a summary, summarizing the benefits of all of this. So want to throw a question out to you all. Why is customer retention so important? And specifically in customer experience, customer success, why do we need to keep that as the central focus? First and foremost, it's hard to acquire a customer. It's really difficult to acquire new logos, new customers. And so, once you've done all of that hard work, you better do your best to actually keep them. And so not only is it hard to acquire them just to sign a contract, get them to purchase from you, but as someone else said, it's expensive to acquire new customers. I was looking up some statistics as I was putting this slide together, and it was a statistic I saw around probability of sales, right? It is much, much easier once you actually have a customer to actually continue selling more to them, right? And so you'll see with this statistic, and they looked at the probability of you being able to sell to an existing customer versus a new prospect who, in this case, a prospect that has actually proactively come to you and has said, hey, I'm interested in your product or service, right? It's still significantly less than selling to an existing customer versus a customer who was referred by another customer, and then lastly, cold calling, right? There is a significant difference on being able to maintain business, expand business with an existing customer base, right? It's the lifeline of any business and it's central to any growth, right? I think someone else talked about it is very expensive, right, to acquire new customers. It's 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer versus retain a customer, right? Or upsell or cross-sell to customers, right? We're talking about something extremely critical. And so I put this down as a reminder because, again, when we're in the customer experience, customer success realm, and we're talking about CX and what do we need to do to please the customer, like I think very, very often we don't have customer retention as a central point in developing our strategy, right? And that's why I'm very passionate about this. But it's very difficult, actually. It's more difficult now than ever to retain customers, right? Does anyone have any guess on why customer retention is more challenging now than ever before? Maybe in days of old, we cornered the market on certain types of products, but then, the other companies catch up, right? And that's not much difference between a product, maybe a specific product that we may have offered 5 years ago, and a product someone else offered, maybe a Dell or a Lenovo or another company. If you look under the hood, there's not so much of a difference, right? And so customer experience, customer success methodologies and strategies are going to make the difference in your ability to be able to retain a customer or not. Also, customers who are unhappy with you actually don't provide you feedback very often. There's this statistic that I saw with customers who are either unhappy or customers who churn. They churn silently, right? Customers who are unhappy most of the time will leave without a complaint, right? So this makes it very difficult to know if you're not putting measures in place and really tapping into it and having a finger on the pulse in your customer base. It's really difficult to know that your customers are, really valuing their experience, right? Because if a customer is unhappy, very often they're not giving you that feedback. Okay, so what is the role of strategic journey mapping in this, right? So for me, the heart of strategic journey mapping in our mission is twofold. Number one, we need to understand what our retention rate is. Let's assume in this case, our current retention rate is 80%, right? Just throwing out a number. With strategic journey mapping, our mission is, number one, to understand that retention rate, and then 2, identify what are the contributing factors. Why are the other 20% not actually being retained, right? We'll see with journey mapping, there's so many details that we jump into, the personas, the emotions, also so forth and so on. At the end of the day, this is our mission. This is the bottom line. What is the number and what's basically contributing to that number? So here is an example of a strategic customer journey map that we did in the past months, right? And so I'll keep this a zoomed out view. We created this, we partnered with Heart of the Customer, and there are a couple of folks from Heart of the Customer on the line today. They've been a great partner of ours in creating customer journey maps. This is one that we created, and you'll see a number of things here with regards to personas, emotions, phases, etc. And so what I want to do is actually break this down into, look into those phases and talk about how and why we created the way we did. Before we dive into the details, are there any questions so far?
Nope, as far as I can see.
Okay, perfect. So we have 5 components of the strategic customer journey map. First component is personas and outcomes. Second component are the journey phases. The third are KPIs. The fourth, sentiment analysis. And the fifth is competitive benchmarking. This is obviously, if you, there are different ways to create these type of journey maps, but at least for us, we found that these 5 components gives us a complete picture when we're trying to evaluate, again, the bottom line. What is the retention rate, and why are we not able to retain customers more, right? So digging into the first, importance of these personas and outcomes. And I know there are a number of people on the call that have very little experience doing journey mapping, etc. So personas essentially are a representation of your users, right? If I'm in technology, I want to understand typically who are my main influencers and buyers, right? I want to get a sense of what that group of customers are like, right? And I'm going to sort of put an archetype, a representation of them together, right? And then I want to understand, what do they value most? What's going to move the needle, right? So I'm going to try to talk to, when I do go talking to customers, and that's something I would emphasize. I never create customer journeys from surveys, right? I don't want to take 200 surveys and, customers purchasing experience, this is what they're saying about us, or the onboarding experience, this is what they're saying about us. I use that data and it has a place in my map, but overall, I have to talk to my customers if I'm going to do this map, at least to the level of detail and quality that I'm looking for. So in this case, in the map that you all saw, we talked to about 35, we talked to 50 customers in that case, right? And we balanced that data against a lot of survey data. And so I want to understand, what are the outcomes? Who are these folks? And then also, what are the outcomes that they care about most? And this combination is going to guide me in really understanding what is moving the needle with their decision making, right? Because again, I'm singularly focused on, why is it that I can't retain them, right? And so I'll open the map and we're going to zoom in and we're going to look at that section. So this is the customer journey map, and you'll see at the top section here, we have the personas, right? So we have 2 personas. I'll even zoom in more if it's needed. We have 2 personas here. One is Mira, one is Travis, right? There are a lot of different ways to do persona work. The most important thing for me when I'm looking at creating a persona is mainly understanding, what is Mira's job, what is Travis's job, and what are the goals that they're trying to achieve in that job, right? And then what are the outcomes? What are the outcomes that are most important? So I want to know, Mira is managing this data center in this large corporation. She's often involved in a lot of different initiatives, firmware updates, etc. And then Travis is a strategist. As the CIO, Travis is going to be most concerned with profitability. Now, often in journey mapping work, and maybe this is a little bit different when B2C versus B2B work. But in B2B specifically, I honestly will just focus on what is Mira being measured on, right? What is Mira is going to be measured on her ability as a data center manager to keep the data center running smoothly. Travis, as the CIO, is going to be measured on his ability to use technology to make this business much more profitable. And so as you're talking to your customers, you're going to get a very clear sense of what they care about. You're going to know, as soon as you have an interview with a head of operations or whatever it is in your particular field, you're going to typically already know what they care about, especially if you're using an outcome type of approach, right? I go into those discussions looking at what are, showing them a list of potential outcomes, and then have them tell me, okay, what's most important and why? How do they actually measure success like that? And then basically come up with a summary of, I can say Mira cares mostly about maximizing on operational performance. Travis cares mostly about optimizing costs and growing revenue. So the very first thing before I even start mapping and looking at smiley faces and frowny faces and so on, I absolutely have to understand what's important to them. Why do they value this, right? Because if I don't understand why they find, why maximizing operational performance is valuable for Mira, I will never be able to connect the dots between, who Mira is and if Mira is going to make a decision to continue buying from me, right? Any questions on that?
We actually have a couple of questions, but I would probably leave them for the Q&A.
Okay, fine. So first step is I really try to get a clear understanding of who my personas are and what they care about most, right? That's my first step. The next step, we want to understand what are the phases, right? And so typically, and depending on the business, right, your phases are going to look a little bit different, right? But typically, you're going to start out with some type of awareness. Your customer is going to start considering their options. They're going to purchase from you, onboard. They're going to engage with your product or solution. And then the moment of truth comes. Can I retain them, right? Have we done enough during this entire journey for them to decide to continue doing business with us or not? So let's look at the phases here in this map. So here you will see we have, I think it's 7 phases. We start out with a discovery phase. Customer has decided that, is interested in making a new purchase. Now they've narrowed down their decisions. They're going to consider our company versus a couple of others and look at several factors. They decide to purchase. They go through an onboarding experience. They adopt our solution. They adopt our products. And then they're looking for us to help them optimize, right, to get the most out of what they've purchased. And then, again, the moment of truth here. And for me, this should be in every customer journey, at least strategic customer journey map. Bottom line, again, are they deciding to renew, refresh, expand with us, right? Have we done a good enough job through this journey to keep them around, right? So you have your second piece of your journey mapping, which is your phases. Your third gets into your KPIs, right? It adds a lot of depth to your mapping, to your journey mapping when you add KPIs to it, right? Because you're not just going and doing those 40 and 50 interviews. You're not just looking at the qualitative information, right? Did I feel sad, or did I feel happy, or was I frustrated, and so on. And especially this is important when when we're going and talking to our executive leadership teams, right? I hear a lot of CX professionals ask, well, how do I get the attention of my executive leadership team? I find most importantly, it comes down to the numbers, right? It comes down to, well, what are the KPIs telling us? And in this case, if we go back to our journey map, you'll see underneath the phases how we layered in the KPIs. And we've sort of scrubbed sensitive data out here. That's why you see some blurry lines. So sorry if it's difficult to read for you, but I can't share all of our dirty laundry here. But you'll see here the third layer that we're talking about is metrics and KPIs that we put in this journey map, right? And so for each one of these phases, I'm looking for specific metrics that's going to really help me understand, what are some of the things that are impacting, and how much is it impacting the customer. So for example, I know that customers, when we looked at our onboarding, they were verbally telling us that it was a poor experience. And so we wanted to go and look at the numbers, right? And the numbers basically told us that it was the time to value, or we call delivery to activation, it was far too long, right? It was much longer than we anticipated it should be, right? And so these are things that help to validate the customer's experience and also give us something very clear to target and go after, right? So you'll see metrics all along for every phase. And then the most important metric, I reiterate again, is our customer retention metric, right? So we want to know, bottom line, what is our customer retention number? Let's just say we use the example of this would say 80% here, right? And so we also add net dollar retention in our numbers. We also, in other maps, you might see expansion rate. And so we really this is really the anchor of our strategic customer journey map when we create it. And so all of this information really should jive together and lead up to this number. If this number was fantastic, then, essentially all of these numbers should, pretty much be pretty solid as well, right? So I want to add, in all of my strategic journey maps, I want to add a third layer, which is KPIs. And then fourth, and I think this is what most people are quite used to in journey mapping, is sentiment analysis, right? We want to get an holistic understanding of a customer's emotions as they go through the journey, right? And so you can see here the way that it's laid out. We have Mira and Travis, and we want to map their emotions as they go through the purchasing or the onboarding, adopt, optimize. What does that tell us? It tells us, if you kind of take a step back, we can see as Mira and Travis, as they've gone through this journey, they've had, they started out relatively positive, and then the experiences got poor, and particularly in three areas, right? In the purchase phase, in the onboarding phase, and in the optimize phase. These three phases, and you'll see hearts here, that lets us know that these phases have a major impact with these two personas on a customer deciding if they want to continue doing business with us or not, right? And so now that I have the phases, I have the metrics, I know that the number is not where I want. I want to understand, in talking to them, I want to understand, what are the areas that are hurting us most? And I can see by looking at this map, the purchase experience, the onboarding experience, the optimized experience are the three areas making the biggest difference. And if I can, let's just say, because the optimize was the worst one, if I can put different procedures and methodologies in place to help optimize, right? Because I know now what Mira and Travis care about. I know Mira cares about maximizing on operational performance. I know now that Travis cares mostly about reducing costs and increasing revenue. And so after they're using my product or service, I know that what they want to receive guidance on are these outcomes. So the more I can connect the dots for Travis and Mira, I know that's going to have the biggest difference in me being able to move that number. So this is how starting to lay all of this information out in a strategic map will help you identify what it's going to take to move the needle for your customers. And there's one final aspect of this customer journey map is the competitive benchmarking. And this is actually something that we just started putting in, and we thought that it really adds a lot of depth to our journey mapping with this competitive benchmark. And you'll see here at the bottom. So essentially what we wanted to add, and we felt that this made a big difference when talking to our leadership team. Nothing will get them sitting on the edge of their seat more than when you're comparing against other companies, right? And in this particular area of the business, we were very poor across the board. The green represented our company, and you'll see too often we are either middle of the pack or laggards when we compared against, let's say, our top 6 competition in this part of the business and this particular offering that we put out there. When we measured what customers thought about us versus what they thought about, some of our key competitors, unfortunately, we were behind, right? And so we felt that this really helped to complete the picture, because not only were the metrics telling us a story, not only were the customers telling us, hey, it's not really, I don't have a good experience here, but also we can see how are we doing against our competition. And we're able to add that layer in there as well. And all of that gave us a very complete picture with regards to our customer and understanding our customer retention rate. So what we did is we said, this is a stake in the ground, and we understand this is the current state. This is what's happening now. So what are we going to do about this, right? And so we have this as is current state journey map. And then what we do is we create a desired state journey map. We said, this is where we are today. Where do we want to be in 2 years, right? So we created another journey map. We work internally. We get all the folks in the different organizations, those who are involved in marketing, sales, delivery, customer success, customer experience, everybody sitting across the table. We did virtual workshops, and we said, now everyone understands where we are today. What is our vision for the future, right? What are customers' outcomes? Are they going to be the same, or we think going forward, customers are going to care about other things. So you'll see here, before we had maximizing operational performance, optimizing costs, and growing revenue. We added accelerating sustainability, because obviously there's sustainability, environment, all of those things are big topics going forward, and a lot of our customers are really prioritizing that. So we want to have that as a factor that we're working with our customers on. But basically what we did in a desired state journey map is we essentially took the same phases. We laid out what are the targeted KPIs that we want to have in 2 years, right? In our onboarding time frame, it was X. In the current state, it should be Y in the future state. So now that we have a target, we can work with teams to figure, put projects together, revise our processes, revise our methodologies that are going to allow us to get to that, desired state. What should we said, what should customers say about us going forward? right? They want to feel Mira should say, and Travis should say that they feel valued, that they feel secure in working with us, right? They trust us, that they feel thankful, right? So we want to project out what will customers say about us in years to come, right? You'll see here we put what the emotions were in the as is and the current state, and we basically said this green is going to be the projected to be state that they will have in the future. And then finally, in the benchmarking, where should we rank against our competition, right? Maybe today we were, bringing up the rear amongst the top 6, right? But for this particular offering, we want, based off of the changes that we're making, we want to make sure that we are amongst the top, right? And so you'll see here the dark green is where we are today, and the light green is where we project to be going forward. So that's how we do customer journey mapping, right? We put a stake in the ground, understand what our customers are, what are the things that are contributing to our inability to have the retention rate as high as we would like. And then we basically say, well, this is what we're going to fix, right? We know that purchasing, onboarding, and optimizing are major contributing factors to our retention rate. This is how we're going to do that differently going forward. And now we have, in those two maps, a vision for really that can be the center of our retention strategy. And so I know we're just about out of time, and I think I'll just wrap up before we get into questions. So the impact of this, right? I think just to summarize, a strategic journey map basically provides us an overview of, understanding what who our customers are, and what do they, basically what is important to retain them, right? We get critical insights and clarity on what they value. And then at the end of the day, once we complete, and, in my view, and, my team's view, and working with Heart of the Customer as well, I think the result done right, what the result of this is, you're going to have a robust, a targeted customer retention strategy with a customer journey map at the center, providing you, I think, all the information you need to develop a high quality retention strategy. So those are the slides that I had. Definitely looking forward to hearing your feedback and engaging with you. So I open up to questions.
Thank you, Percy. And we have plenty of them in the chat. And I believe there will be more. I will probably start with the latest question I noticed in the chat, because it seems like it's the most logical one here. So the question is from Brooke. This is definitely a long journey. How long did it take for you to get to this point? How many iterations it took?
Well, I would say the length of time that it took to create the journey map, like probably between the interviews and rationalizing the data and all of that, was probably 5 months to come up with a final result of the current state and then the to be. I would say the thing that takes the most time is interviewing customers, right? Setting up time to interview them and those type of things. And it depends on the size of your team to be able to go off and divide and conquer. Once you get information back, you want to rationalize and understand what are the key themes that you're finding. The actual production of the map, right? Once you have all of your information sort of laid out in an organized fashion, I think the production of the map can happen over a month time frame, and maybe 5 or 6 iterations going, to produce the map. Most of the work is going to be before that, going out and talking to customers, pulling the information in, and rationalizing it. Hopefully, that answers your question, Brooke.
Thank you. And actually, you mentioned the interviews here and talking to customers, and I have a set of questions on this topic here. And I actually noticed that there is a whole conversation raised in the chat, yes, by you mentioning customer interviews. So the question here is, how do you get around to speaking to 50 customers? What strategy do you employ for that?
Yeah, we go through the account teams and the customer success managers, right? We want to go through people who already have relationships with those customers, right? And so just because I think when we started out, we were trying to just reach out, hey, would you be interested in doing an interview? And nobody responded. And so then we just pivoted to our account managers, our customer success managers, and then just asking them if they had any customers who they think would be interested in talking to us. Sometimes, I think even lately, we are throwing out incentives to customer success managers to be motivated enough to go and ask their customers to, join a list. But we really like to go through people who already have relationships with those customers.
Thank you so much.
And also what's important with that is we never, even though it's an account team or a customer success team, we never have them in the interview with us, right? You have to have an independent voice, because the customer is not going to tell you honestly what they think if their account team person is there, right? So we always do it independently.
Well, chances are, from my personal experience. Thank you. Okay, we had the question right at the beginning of the session, which I missed at that point. The question is from Tatiana. What are the best ways to identify which are referred clients?
Sorry, what are the chances?
Sorry. What are the ways to identify which are referred clients?
The best way to identify referred clients? Referred to what?
I believe by who? By your clients, your previous clients.
I'm trying to understand what referred to sell to. I'm trying to understand what the question. The best way to identify referred clients.
As far as I understand the question, well, the question is that you showed the slides at the very beginning, and you said that there are certain ways to get the clients. Those are the ones that you already have, existing clients, new clients, like cold leads, and then the clients who, well, your clients referred to you. Is it how it sounds?
Well, I mean, no. In our sales motion, I think they're documenting how this pipeline was formulated, right? And so they document if a customer has come to them referred by another customer. We have a whole program with regards to our existing customers referring other customers, and then they have benefits of doing that. And so we tend to document when a customer has come to us via a referral. I don't know if that is helpful.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Brooke. She's interested to know how long without NPS is it considered to be a risk?
We don't track NPS. We stopped tracking NPS. We don't find it actionable. I think there are just a lot of other metrics that we get more value out of.
Okay. And then Brooke says that it makes sense to her. And then we have another question from Brooke. How do you narrow down appropriate personas? They have a list of like 50 and definitely not a good way to scale. So how do they make sure that they are capturing those 80%?
So we narrow it down to who's actually buying, right? Who's going to be the one signing the check and, making the decision to buy, and then who's closest to that person in terms of an influencer. And so if you look at our particular personas, that influencer sometimes is a buyer based off of, the size of the deal. The CIO is often, going to be the buyer in the larger deals, and the head of infrastructure or the Mira persona is going to heavily influence the CIO. And so for those larger deals, that's going to be sort of the setup. But maybe in the smaller deal, the CIO is going to say, okay, I don't need to be involved. That fits within our budget. Then you're going to have a Mira who's going to be the buyer. So I'm really focused on, at the end of the day, who's going to be the one signing the check. So.
Thanks. And speaking of personas, there's a question from Michelle. How do you generate personas? Are they assumptive, or you're basing it on actual customer research?
So we base it off of customer research, and honestly, I didn't generate. I go to the marketing team, right? I think any company's marketing team, they will typically have at least the starting point of personas, right? They should understand who they're marketing to, right? And so what I did is I went first to the marketing team to say, okay, well, what are the list? And we had a list of 15 or something like that. And then I just narrowed that down to who were the most critical to determining, do they want to continue business with us or not, right? So if they're marketing to a user of the solution and they're one of 15,000 people in that organization, I'm not tracking that particular persona, right? They're not going to be influential to the retention strategy. And so I started out with marketing, and then what I wanted to do was saying, okay, what are those people being measured on, right? The CIO, what's going to keep that CIO in a job? Profitability is going to keep that CIO in a job. The head of infrastructure, her ability to maximize on the operational performance of that data center is going to keep Mira in a job, right? And so I want to understand, I want to talk to them about what are going to be the best things for them to keep them, looking good in their jobs, right? And that's what the list of outcomes comes from.
Thank you. And I have a comment from Sarah here. She thinks that marketing personas are a little bit different. Do you have anything to comment on that?
Maybe in another company, I don't know, but but I can tell you, I use those as a starting point, right? I'm not saying I just copied and pasted what marketing said. I use the list as a starting point, and then I think most marketing, at least in my experience, marketing team will at least give you a good start, right? And then you can kind of build around it. And the more customers that you're talking to, then you're starting to at least refine the persona descriptions based off of what you're looking for, right? So when I go to marketing and I grab the persona, they didn't know anything about the outcomes. They should, but at the end of the day, they didn't. They just knew that we have a CIO, we have a head of infrastructure, we have a head of security, all these different things, and they have some general information about them. Now, when I go out and talk to them, the more and more I talk to them, the more I can refine and add detail and granularity to that.
Thank you. And then I have, and as I said before, we had several questions on customer interviews, and it's time for the other one that we have here. And that's the question from Stephanie. How many client interviews determine statistical significance for you?
25 to 30. And this is actually a very interesting thing. After we got past 15, I could almost recite what they're going to tell us before they even said it. So I I think if you're having a discussion with a customer from an outcome perspective, you actually don't have to have a lot of them, right? I think there's this thought that, or even when we started, our big concern was like, wow, it's even 20, 25 interviews. Will people trust the information that we have? Because we're coming from a world of 2,000 surveys, right? What are all the surveys telling us, and how are we rationalizing the survey information? We got more insights from 20 interviews than 2,000, 3,000 surveys, right? I think once you really hone in on a matrix of, who your customers are and what do they care about, and then what's their experiences with you, if you just kind of have those as three components of your discussion, you're going to gain so much insight, qualitative information from them that's going to actually be more than thousands of surveys.
When I just joined the company, we host one of the events ourselves. Our team was speaking, and well, if I remember correctly, so we were talking about like having up to 10 interviews will be enough, because after that you will see the patterns and you will see the repeating answers. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I can understand what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see Keith here is actually replying something like that.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Percy, just helping out. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And okay, we have 5 minutes and a couple more questions here in the chat. So there is a question from Darren. Are all the KPIs and metrics linked to revenue, or are they linked to other points like satisfaction?
Yeah, we do have a balance. We have, like, so for example, the onboarding, in the onboarding phase, it's time to value, right? If a customer is sitting there, they've purchased from you and they're expecting to get value from your solution within 30 days, and your metrics are telling you that it's taking 75 days on average, then that's going to be a major pain point for your customers. And it's going to be a factor in them deciding if they want to continue doing business with you or not. So it's not necessary, that time to value is not necessarily a financial metric, but somehow it's connected to how is a customer experiencing doing business with you, and are they going to think about this when it's time to when they're when we're going 4 years down the line and it's time to sign a new contract. Are they going to think, wow, that's a horrible onboarding experience, takes way too long for me to get value, maybe I'm going to go to their competitor?
Thank you. And we have another question from Laurie. For earlier stage companies, at what point do you create a customer journey, especially when you don't have much data?
I think you can create in the very beginning. You can create, I showed a to be, a desired state journey. You can, from the beginning, you can create what is our vision of what a customer should experience with us, right? What are the outcomes that we want to enable with our customers? I think that is so critical, especially even in a maybe a startup or a new company, because we fall in love with the product, right? And we lose sight of ultimately what am I going to help this customer achieve? Because I may love my product, but they actually don't care about my product. They care about the outcome that they're trying to achieve, right? So doing this exercise forces you to think about what are the outcomes our customers care about, and then how will I and my product help them achieve that as efficiently as possible. So I actually think that even if you had no customers, you lay out your vision, and then over time you come back to it and say, okay, are we meeting that vision or not?
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking the same thing, that it's a good idea to see what you want to actually obtain, and then where you are and if you're even close to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a question from Tatiana. When you were showing us the map, you had two personas in there. And the question is if metrics and KPIs on CJM are from two personas or they are just metrics in general.
They're metrics in general. So that's where we kind of take those metrics from thousands of surveys and so on. Or some of them are from surveys, but others are just metrics, performance metrics that our business tracks.
Okay. And I would like to mention that we are just a little bit over time, but we have 3 more questions in here. Percy, are you about to answer them? Do you have time for that?
100%, yeah, sure. And I would say, as you all probably can tell, I love to talk about this topic, and so I'm on LinkedIn. Please, I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn and share ideas, right? But yeah, please go ahead, Veronica.
This is the pitch that I was about to say in like 5 minutes.
Okay, sorry.
But well, thank you for doing that for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and as I said, we have about 3 questions here. The question is from Darren. How did you facilitate the sessions to build the future state? With so many different team members, well, you're working for a huge company. Then that's a quote. Was there no bedlam?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is I didn't want to get into a room with just a blank sheet. So what we did was we created a draft to-be map, a draft desired state map, right? And then when we pulled all of those groups together, then we basically said, okay, this is probably a 75% version of what a to-be could look like. We want you to kind of take it, tear it apart, whatever, right? And the group really appreciated that because honestly, one of the worst things when going through a customer journey mapping exercise is everybody staring at the blank sheet with all of these random sticky notes and all that, and it takes forever, right? But we found if you just kind of show them a little bit of a starting point and say, okay, revise it. It was way quicker. And, people were just, they just jumped on board much faster. So no, there wasn't any bedlam because I think people appreciated the effort that we put in to at least make the process really easy for them.
100%. It's so much easier to look at when there is at least some text. I mean, in the section when you're just looking at the empty section and you need to generate some ideas in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Claire. Do you use photo personas to create the CJM?
Do I use what personas?
Proto personas, sorry.
Photo persona. Photos? Proto?
Yes.
Oh, I
like
don't
a prototype?
Yeah, I don't really use them.
I'll help you out, Percy.
Tell me.
Proto personas, yeah, they're like basically their personas built off of information you kind of have, like just from employees. There's some assumptions and things like that, but not like doing the interview or going through that customer research phase. It's just kind of like talk to the front line, you kind of get a feel, and then build personas there.
Yeah, no, I think we just maybe what we get from the marketing team is the proto persona or something, but we're working to constantly revise. The more customers we talk to, then we're kind of taking that information and then just kind of making it our own specific to the customer journey map. So, yeah, I have a starting point, but then I talk to customers and then I enhance it.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Sarah here. How did these executives, once again, how did these executives feel after seeing this? By this, I suppose she meant the map.
Oh, yeah, well, it's our second time around doing this with it. The first time they were they were very surprised that we're able to put all of that information on one page, and it really helped to tell a narrative that, quite honestly, they agreed with, right? They were all kind of knew that there were problems, but they didn't really connect the dots between the retention rate and where how big of a factor it was, the optimizing phase, right? How big of a factor of us not being able to really demonstrate our ability to, let's say, optimize cost for the CIOs. Hey, we assume that they know that they're going to be able to save money. No, we have to build this into our methodology and actively demonstrate how we're able to deliver this outcome to them, right? So that's they didn't really understand how those problems had major contributing factors to what our retention rate was. And so the response from our leadership team was highly positive. And also, especially adding that little competitive benchmarking piece into it. Our leadership team is competitive. Hey, we're better than this. Why are we last? Or at least in the top 6. Why can't we do better than that in this particular space? So you also got a lot of motivation from that as well.
And then what happened next after you presented the to-be map to the executives? Was there an MVP or a prototype created based on that, on any specific customer journey stage?
Yeah. So the good news is that the customer journey, and I set this up with them up front, customer journey mapping was really only the first step in a larger program, right? Because now we have the vision, but we also have to have a plan of doing something about this afterwards, right? And in particular for us, we really want to ramp up our digital customer success. And we think that many of these issues are going to be addressed by digital customer success. And so immediately after we sort of put the current state and the desired state, we looked at, okay, process mapping, right? So there's a layer underneath this, which I didn't share, is that we've connected the core processes that need to be changed. We've connected that to our strategic journey map. And now under the core processes, we're going to be putting enabling maps basically to say, okay, this is specifically how we will change in the optimize, right? You need to do, as a customer success manager, you need to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is how we're going to automate that step. So we've basically taken now something that's very high level, a very high level vision, and step by step by step, we're actually putting in granular detail the rules and the steps in place to make that change. So fortunately for, I have a lot of backing to actually implement change now that the vision is in place.
As we say at UXPressia, it doesn't stop when you have created a journey map. It only begins.
That's right.
If you want to see more events like this, make sure to check the upcoming ones at UXPressia.eventbrite.com or check the recordings we've got on this channel. Take care, and I will see you around.